My name is Hannah, and this is my beauty budget. Hey y'all, so I very recently filmed my eyeshadow palette declutter. I pulled out my entire collection of eyeshadow palettes, which was 14 palettes, and I went through them. I decided to give away 3 of those palettes, and I decided to keep 7 of them. The remaining 4, I decided to depot. I wanted to destroy the palettes, take all of the eyeshadows out, turn them into singles, and incorporate those singles into my larger collection of single eyeshadows. So when I did that, I filmed that process, and that is what this video contains. I am not an expert depotter. This is the largest depotting project I've ever undertaken, and as with most projects of this nature, I just winged it. I just kind of went for it, and it was sort of a process of trial and error, but it did go pretty well. So I don't have much to say in terms of advice for depotting. You can watch what I did and see how it went and apply that to your own projects, but I did want to let you know about the tools that I used. So in the video, you'll see me using this X-Acto knife and this depotting tool. And I purchased both of these from Amazon. I'll link both of the ones that I bought down below, but obviously any X-Acto knife and any old little tool will work just fine for depotting. I had it in my head that I might use dental floss because I think I saw a picture or a video somewhere at one time of somebody sliding a piece of dental floss underneath a pan of eyeshadow to slice the glue and loosen the pan from the palette. I didn't end up needing to do that. It just seemed like it would be less effective than going at it with those 2 tools, but that's why you see some dental floss sitting next to the palettes at the beginning of the video. I wasn't flossing my teeth while I was depotting, I promise. And that's pretty much it. There's nothing else to say in this introduction. This is definitely a video in which I will show instead of tell, or I guess I'll be showing and telling kind of at the same time. Let's go ahead and get right into the meat of the video. Hello, welcome to my video in which I attempt to depot these 4 eyeshadow palettes. The Alomar Reina del Caribe palette, the Festival palette by Juvia's Place, the Saharan 2 by Juvia's Place, and the Jaclyn Hill Morphe palette. I'm not an expert in depotting. I am just going to wing it. These are my tools. I've done a little bit of online research, but really not a lot. It's going to be some serious trial and error, and I'm definitely not claiming to be demonstrating how one should go about depotting a palette in this video. I'm just filming the process of me trying to do it. So I'm going to start with the Jaclyn Hill palette because I have actually previously popped 2 shadows out of this palette just using this little tool, and they came out pretty easily. It's partly because the glue isn't super strong, and it's also because the glue is just attached to cardboard. So in the case of this one, cardboard just ripped off with the glue. So both of these shadows came out perfectly intact. I feel pretty good about having a go at this palette. I've heard that Juvia's Place palettes are really difficult to depot because the pans are big and they are also shallow, so that makes them a little bit more delicate than the average eyeshadow pan. So I've actually just turned my heater on full blast, and I'm going to go set these 2 palettes on top of my heater, and hopefully the glue will get a little bit gooey. And just for good measure, I'm going to pop the Alomar palette on there as well. So I'm going to put these on my heater, and I'm going to start trying to dismantle this guy. So even though these 2 eyeshadows came out without trouble, I'm actually going to go the extra mile in my attempt to get the rest of the shadows out. I'm going to take the packaging completely apart. I have this X-Acto knife right here. I'm just going to slice it up along the sides and try to pull this entire cardboard thingy off. And then I think it'll probably be easier to get in underneath the pans without this cardboard framing around them. All right, that was not too difficult to do. I really had to slice at the cardboard. I had to pretty much take apart the cardboard framing. I had to slice the top part of it away from the bottom part because the shadows are sitting on the bottom part. But now, mostly, they are just sitting on top of cardboard, and I think it'll be really, really easy to pry them off. I'm going to try to go gently. As you can see, this one just kind of came away by itself. I'm going to try to go gently with this, but I think that they're going to come off without too much trouble, judging by my previous experience. And also, if one of them breaks, it's really fine. It's really fine. I'm not necessarily planning on keeping all of these anyway, and it's just eyeshadow. So I'm not very freaky outy about it. I'm just gonna go for it and see what happens. All right, that's it. I went and fetched the other two eyeshadows that were in my single shadow palette and popped them into their proper location so that we could have the satisfaction of seeing the entire palette depotted. We did have one casualty. It's this one right here. And thankfully, this is not an eyeshadow that I think I would have been keeping anyway, because again, these sort of red toned browns, brownie reds, that's something that I have plenty of and that I don't use all that often. So I don't feel sad about that. And I learned my lesson. The mattes are much more delicate than the shimmers. So I was going in more with the X-Acto knife to get underneath the mattes, whereas many of the shimmers are just popping off perfectly fine with this little tool. All right, so here's the Alomar palette, and it's actually feeling really hot to touch, like almost too hot to touch. I'm sure that if there's any glue in there, it's definitely softened. I actually went ahead and turned down my heater because I feel like the heat, while it's good for melting the glue, is really quite a lot. It's really quite hot, and I was worried about the other eyeshadow palettes sitting on there for longer than just a couple of minutes. But I'm glad that my heater is hot enough to warm up some glue. I feel like it's a really efficient and convenient way to make these shadows easier to remove. This is a really similar packaging to the Jaclyn Hill palette. It's this cardboard packaging. I'm going to go at it with the same plan. I'm just going to dismantle the packaging using the X-Acto knife and see if I can gently urge these shadows off of their cardboard backing. All right, no casualties. So the glue under there was definitely super soft. Like it was very, very soft and jelly-like. And when I started prying under there, they just sort of slipped around. But then when I started prying them out, the glue was very sticky. And I have a feeling that these would have been extremely difficult to remove from the backing if I hadn't heated up the glue pretty hot. So at this point, I would say if you're going to depot an Alomar palette, I would recommend using heat of some kind, an iron, an oven, a heater. I would recommend trying to soften that glue because I think that the mattes especially might not have made it if I hadn't done that. All right, so here's the Juvia's Place Festival palette, and it is so hot from the heater that this piece has just come completely off of the backing, and this is totally warped and won't even close properly. So I've heated it up good and proper, and hopefully that will help me in trying to delicately remove these extremely shallow pans of eyeshadow. Okay, so there we go, they're out. Two minor casualties. This one lost a little chunk off the corner, and then this one right here has that crack sort of all around the edge of the pan that cracked when I was working really hard to peel the glue off of the back. And what's interesting is that as I worked through the palette, the glue became harder and harder to peel off of the backs of the pans. And I'm as sure as I can be that that's because it was cooling off. So with these, you definitely need to warm up that glue. It was super, super stuck onto the backs of the pans. I didn't even manage to get it off of this last one. There's still like a pat of glue on the back of there. Luckily on this one, it's relatively flat. The good thing is with the Juvia's Place palettes, it's the shimmers that I really want to keep. The mattes, I'll probably keep some of them, but I could kind of take or leave them. So these two that have cracked, I'm not too upset about it. I don't feel like these are two of the mattes that would have been first in line for keeping anyway. So I would say all around that went pretty well. All right, and here's the Saharan 2. It is super hot, it is super warped, and I'm gonna try to work as fast as possible on this so that I can get the shadows all out while the glue is still hot. All right, got them. The only one that cracked was this one, and I am so fine with it. This is basically a giant pan of a color that I don't really like very much, and that's also a color that there are a lot of repeats of in the Jaclyn Hill palette and elsewhere, and I probably would have decluttered it anyway. What luck. So here's all the garbage from the palettes that I depotted. The Saharan 2, the Festival, the Alomar, and Jaclyn Hill Morphe, and all of their innards. The Juvia's Place Saharan 2, the Juvia's Place Festival palette up here, the Jaclyn Hill Morphe palette, and down here the little Alomar palette. And all of these will be going through the ringer when I decide which of my single shadows I'm going to keep and which of them I am going to give away in my upcoming single eyeshadow declutter. Stay tuned for that one. And that is it. If you are still here, thank you for watching all the way through to the end of my depotting video. I had a great time. It actually went more smoothly than I expected, and it was very satisfying. It was gratifying, and I love the fact that I now have all of these single shadows to play with. I did film the process of myself rearranging, decluttering those single shadows, and that video will be coming very, very soon. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you are remembering to take extra good care of yourself right now so that you can be the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world.